Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack, back again to bring you the Conduit of the Celestials hero talent tree for Mistweaver and Windwalker. It starts with the ability Celestial Conduit, which is a minute and a half active ability. It's a minute and a half cooldown, where the August Celestials empower you, causing you to radiate nature damage onto enemies and healing onto up to 5 injured allies within 20 yards over 4 seconds, split evenly among them. The healing and damage is increased by 6% per enemy struck, up to 30%. You may move while channeling, but casting other healing or damage spells cancels the effect. And they want to note that the channel will not break due to using defensives, utility, or movement spells, which sounds to me like they're going to also make it so you could roll during the duration. And so it's sort of a Emerald Communion that a Preservation Evoker might have, but it's radiating healing or damage, and hitting more enemies is also increasing the healing. Hitting more enemies is increasing the healing that you're doing to your allies. You have a couple of choice nodes here with Temple Training, where for Mistweaver, the healing of Enveloping Mist and Vivify is increased by 10%. For Windwalker, Fists of Fury and Spinning Crane Kick deal 10% more damage. And that is a choice node between that or Schwen's Guidance, where Teachings of the Monastery has a 15% chance to refund a charge, which I think they mean stack, when consumed. And the damage of Tiger Palm is increased by 30%. Part of the theme of this talent tree is getting empowered by different Celestials, and so you'll see a couple areas like Courage of the White Tiger, where Mistweaver's Tiger Palm is a chance to cause Schwen to claw your target for physical damage, healing a nearby ally for 200% of the damage done, and that chance is increased while Invoke Yu'lon or Invoke Chi-Ji are active. Windwalker, their Tiger Palm also will proc Schwen to claw the target for more damage, and it will also proc an additional heal, and the chance is also increased while their Celestial in Schwen is active. Restore Balance, gain Refreshing Jade Wind while Chi-Ji or Yu'lon is active. Or for Windwalker, gain Rushing Jade Wind while Schwen is active. There's a choice note between that or Yu'lon's Knowledge, where Refreshing Jade Wind's duration is increased by 10 seconds, which is pretty big. And Windwalker's Rushing Jade Wind duration is increased by 4 seconds, and multiple uses may overlap. Heart of the Jade Serpent on the left side here, consuming 8 stacks of Sheilun's Gift, which is also increased to 16 if you're talented into the Veil of Pride talent for Mistweavers. Causes Yu'lon to decrease the cooldown time of Renewing Mist, Rising Sun Kick, Life Cocoon, and Thunder Focus Tea by 100% for 8 seconds. So the way I understand this is that when you fulfill a certain requirement, when you hit a Tiger Palm, you can have a chance to summon Schwen. When you are consuming enough Sheilun's gifts, you're going to summon Yu'lon. Those are the empowerments that you're getting from that Celestial. And so you'll see this theme a little bit later on. For Windwalker, consuming 30 Chi causes Yu'lon to decrease the cooldown time of Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, Strike of the Windlord, and Whirling Dragon Punch by 100% for 8 seconds. Strength of the Black Ox, after Schwen assists you, which is, like we talked about, coming from the Tiger Palms here. Your next Enveloping Mist cast time is reduced by 50% and causes Nizhao to grant an Absorb Shield to 5 nearby allies for 5% of your max health. So you proc the benefit from Schwen, and afterwards you get a proc for Nizhao to help you, that you can cast the Enveloping Mist and also result in an Absorb for 5 of your allies. So you're kind of bouncing between these different buffs. Windwalker also does the same thing. They Tiger Palm. They get the assistance from Schwen, which claws the active target. After that active target gets clawed, Nizhao comes out, stomps him a whole bunch of enemies to help out. Flight of the Red Crane, Refreshing Jade Wind, and Spinning Crane Kick have a chance to cause Chi-Ji to quickly rush to 5 targets, healing each of them. This is very similar to the old Invoke Red Crane that we had back in BFA and before then, where it kind of just bounces around and heals everybody. And Windwalker has the same sort of effect, but it damages enemies and is procced from Rushing Jade Wind and Spinning Crane Kick. There's a choice node here for your defensive node, where Nizhao's Protection will grant an Absorb Shield for 25% of your maximum health, or Jade Sanctuary, where you heal for 10% of your max health instantly when you activate Celestial Conduit and receive 15% less damage for its duration. So keep in mind, this is your minute and a half cooldown, where you will then heal for 10% of your max life instantly, and then while you're channeling for 4 seconds, then you're going to have that 15% damage reduction on hand. So I think Jade Sanctuary is going to be pretty sick. Chi Swiftness, your movement speeds increase by 25% during Celestial Conduit, and for 3 seconds after being assisted by any Celestial. And so keep in mind, you can have Xuen proccing off Tiger Palms, and when that procs, it'll then have Nezhao help you out. You're having Yulan proccing from consuming Shaylun's gifts. You're having the Chi proccing from refreshing Jade Wind and spinning Crane Kick. So whenever any of those are proccing, you are then getting movement speed buff to help. Inner Compass is the alignments with these August Celestials, increasing a corresponding stat by 3%. So if you're having Xuen helping you, then you're getting a crit strike buff. If Chi-Ji's helping you, you're getting haste, and Ox versatility, Serpent is giving you mastery. It's a choice to know between that or August Dynasty, where casting Jade Fire Stomp increases the damage of your next Rising Sun Kick by 30%, or healing of your next Vivify by 50% for Mistweaver. And finally, there's a lot of words in this one. Unity Within, Celestial Conduit can be recast once during its duration, again, that's a duration of 4 seconds, to call upon all of the August Celestials to assist you at 200% effectiveness. So it seems to me that this is going to be proccing all of these Celestials to do damage and heal, to stomp allies and produce the absorbs, to bounce around and heal allies, to get cooldown reduction from your Rising Sun Kick and other abilities, all of those things at once if you cast it during Celestial Conduit. Or it's automatically cast when Celestial Conduit ends if it's not used during the channel of Celestial Conduit. So you have all of this sort of synergy coming in together. And to join me in going over all of these changes and what they mean for Mistweaver, we've got Sweggles. So what's going on, man? How are you liking the Conduit of the Celestials so far?
It is pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool interactions here that we're seeing. The baseline ability that we get, Celestial Conduit, seems pretty cool. It's essentially just a updated version of Essence Font. I have no idea if it scales with haste at the moment, but the ability to use defensives, utility, and movement spells during Celestial Conduit is pretty cool, because it's just a better form of Essence Font at that point. There is a little bit of a confusion with the wording in terms of the healing and damage increase per enemy struck. I'm assuming that that's also going to work for healing allies as well, or at least I hope so. Otherwise, it makes it quite a underpowered healing spell. But obviously, everything in this tree is dependent on the number tuning. So,
yeah, and how do you feel about having some of the damage reduction already sort of built into it, where you're already having the option to like instantly heal yourself and be able to have steady damage reduction, and you can move? Like, it's going to be so hard to die during this channel.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely very good. It's a push in the right direction for Mistweaver Monk. I mean, historically we were pretty weak defensively before 10.2, and now we have sort of become these unkillable gods, which feels really good. So to see more of that is definitely welcomed.
Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on having to balance some of the variety, really? It's so many of your abilities. It's not a lot of bloat or anything like that, but keeping track of these additional buffs that you have on hand. Like, if you Tiger Palm, you're proccing the Xuen, which then means your Nezhao is going to help you, and then you have to keep in mind there's going to be a proc of Enveloping Mist that you want to track so you can take advantage of it to get some extra absorbs out onto your buds. Yeah. Then if you're consuming Shaylun stacks, you have to keep in mind that sometimes you're going to be consuming Shayluns not perfectly at 10 stacks or 8 stacks or whatever. And so sometimes after your Shayluns, you're getting a lot of cooldown reduction for Rising Sun Kick, Renewing Mist, Life Cocoon, Thunder Focus Tea. It kind of seems like we're not getting any ability bloat, but the like cognitive load for Mistweaver seems to be ramping up.
Definitely. There's a lot of really good choices, and as I sort of keep reading more and more about them, I'm like, well, maybe we go down the left side, or maybe we go down the right side, or down the middle. They all seem very good. I like being able to sort of focus in on one thing, whether it's, gaining more refreshing Jade Wind duration, or...
Well, you're going to get everything. I mean, there's a couple of choice nodes.
Yeah, I guess the choice nodes is good.
Yeah.
But, yeah, gaining everything here would be very, very good. My understanding of Inner Compass, at least what I was told, is that, Heart of the Serpent, Courage of the White Tiger, and Flight of the Red Crane, these things just randomly sort of proc for you. You don't actually get the Celestial themselves, but you do get the buff corresponding to whatever Celestial you got from that buff, right? So we'll have to see the tuning on some of the numbers here in terms of like Flight of the Red Crane and, just how much Courage of the White Tiger actually performs. But it looks very interesting, especially since you're basically just going to be rotating around different stat buffs with Inner Compass. It's going to be very cool. I'm most excited for the right side of the tree in terms of the Refreshing Jade Wind. I
Yeah.
think that if the Restore Balance one works with an existing Refreshing Jade Wind, it's going to be very, very potent. I also am curious to see if the Flood of the Red Crane is on proc or if it's on tick of Refreshing Jade Wind and Spinning Crane Kick. If it's on tick, I could imagine it being very, very strong.
Mhm.
But we'll have to see the tuning around that.
Yeah, and Mistweaver really has not been using Refreshing Jade Wind really much at all this expansion. Is that right?
No, it got reworked. It went from being something that we sort of actively pressed throughout the rotation to a 45-second CD with a 15-second duration.
Mhm.
So it's something that you want to press occasionally during periods of sort of high healing intensity, which is good because it removes that button bloat like we were talking about. But when it's buffed up a little bit, like 10 seconds increased duration, or it has this Flight of the Red Crane tied to it, it can be very, very good, as the button right now is just barely behind the alternative talent in the tree. So I'm eager to see what that looks like.
What's it competing with right now in the tree?
Mistrap, which is very good because we're playing with Tear Morning and Chi Harmony. It
Ah, yeah.
is just barely behind though. It's like 0.3 or 0.4% behind. So if it gets a little bit of a nudge in the right direction, which it's definitely getting with the right side of the tree here, it will be very, very good.
Okay, so there's potential for you to be able to take Refreshing Jade Wind and not be so button bloated. You said it was a 45-second cooldown and a 15-second duration, so it could be a 25-second duration with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just hitting
And
occasionally and knowing, hey, like I'm gonna do so much healing over 25 seconds. Don't have to be hitting it that often, like that you had to back in what BFA,
yeah,
Shadowlands. Yeah.
it's definitely a very good fire and forget button, which honestly I'm a fan of. Lessening the cognitive load is very, very good on the spec, just because if you're playing around, the reduced cooldown of Renewing Mist, Rising Sun Kick, and everything else going on, just being
Right.
able to press one button and sort of forget about it for 45 seconds or 35 seconds is very, very good in my opinion.
Hmm. And do you think that this is going to be more focused on like raids or Mythic Plus, or do you think this is a nice hybrid between the two?
It's a very nice hybrid between the two. I think that the August Dynasty is very, very cool, being that J Fire Stomp already does quite a bit of damage and quite a bit of healing on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So getting the 50% buff to Vivify on top of that, if it works with Vivify Cleave, is going to be very nice because you could sort of sync up the instant cast Vivify with your Jade Fire Stomp cast to just basically give you like a 1-2 punch of a very strong AoE heal into a very strong single target heal, which would be definitely very cool in that sense. I also think that the Courage of the White Tiger with the Tiger Palm chance to give basically just more damage and more healing is very good as well. Tiger Palm got so many buffs this expansion, it went from being one of the weakest single target spells in the game to being one of the sort of stronger spammable ones. It competes with Blackout Kick right now, and if you're playing with the Jade Fire Stomp talents that give you 2 Tiger Palms whenever you use one, this will effectively just do double the amount that it should do, which is going to be very, very cool. And plus, you're gaining the critical strike buff from Inner Compass at that point whenever it procs, which is very, very sick.
Yeah. And so, if let's just talk about raids for a second. If we're looking at throughout all of Dragonflight, there's Clouded Focus, some people have been messing around with like Ancient Teachings builds. What do you think that this setup is really going to push Mistweaver towards in a raid environment for gameplay?
Definitely Rising Mist, just because we are going to be wanting to play with Courage of the White Tiger to get the crit buff and to get the versatility buff from Strength of Black Ox as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's not that much going on here with Tier Morning that would sort of incentivize playing it. We'll definitely have to see what Master of Harmony looks like for that, but I think that this one is more focused around incorporating the whole kit rather than just some aspects of the kit, whether it's just Soothing Mist and Vivify and Enveloping Mist spamming.
Yeah.
This has sort of the whole picture, which I really like because I'd much rather play with the whole picture of Mistweaver's kit rather than just some aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. And we also were seeing, really, I was talking to Thune about it before, about how prevalent sort of like a ramping playstyle is of kind of putting all of your cooldowns, all your modifiers together, and then just blasting. What are your thoughts on how flexible, inflexible this might make your gameplay as you're sort of wombo comboing a lot of these celestial effects and this new cooldown on top of what Mistweaver already has?
Right. So I think it's not bad overall. The way that Celestial Conduit reads to me if the numbers aren't really there, I could see you just pressing it and getting a little bit of the healing off, and then canceling the channel and going into the rest of your kit, and then getting the Unity Within buff for the second 200% effectiveness cast, and then actually like using that as your proper heal and your proper cooldown. I think that would be a lot better. I'm not the biggest fan of sort of like just straight up getting rid of the first cast of Celestial Conduit, but in a kit that's as involved as Mistweaver is, especially with Rising Mist, it might end up being the play, and if that is the case, then I'm honestly fine with it. But I highly think that Celestial Conduit is going to be something that is hasted, and if it is, it's going to synergize really well with the haste buff from Inner Compass, Seek and Refusion as a haste buff. We have Invoker's Delight that also gives us another haste buff there. So we have a lot of ways of just scaling up our haste, and plus you just want to play a lot of haste when you're playing Rising Mist anyways. So I expect that Celestial Conduit will probably be pushed down to about what an Upwelling Essence Font cast would be, or a channel would be, which is about 2.5 seconds or 3 seconds. Which would be a lot better in that scenario, and it wouldn't really feel that intrusive in the rest of the rotation and with the amount of cooldowns that you have.
Okay, so to break it down in simple terms, you set up a whole bunch of these haste modifiers. You Celestial Conduit, that's hasted. It's going to be 2-ish seconds. You pop that, you gain all the benefits of all of the Celestials, which sounds like Inner Compass giving you all of the buffs.
That's what I believe, so yeah.
That's what it seems like. And then you're going into the brunt of your cooldowns of having your Celestial out, giving you maybe Refreshing Jade Wind on hand, or maybe you're taking extended duration, and so you might be able to toss that up really quickly and have a 25-second duration. Your abilities are hasted. You're tossing out all these extra renewing mists because you're getting more cooldown reduction from the Celestials that you're proccing thanks to Unity Within.
Yep.
And then you just go to town and blast.
Yep. It's just everything sort of culminates into one big burst of HPS every 90 seconds, which seems really cool. Another concern that I sort of have is with this whole tree, it's a lot about sort of summoning your Celestials, which obviously doesn't really favor Jade Bond in that case, which is the 3-minute talent for your Celestial rather than the 1-minute talent with Gift of Celestial.
Right.
So I think that this whole tree sort of incentivizes only playing with 1-minute Celestial, which is what we've been accustomed to pretty much this entire expansion, which is fine. But I would like to see Jade Bond get a little bit of love, make it a little bit stronger than it is right now, because it just cannot compete with how dominant Gift of Celestial is. And if this playstyle is pushing Gift of Celestial even further ahead, then there's going to be no relevancy for Jade Bond, where I'd like to see a little bit of relevancy for it.
Gotcha. And do you think that this is going to be more of a Chi-Ji or a Yulan sort of support? What would be the big differences for this current setup?
It's really hard to say without knowing sort of the numbers on stuff like Flood of the Red Crane, and if Restore Balance allows you to cast 2 Refreshing Jade Winds at the same time. I think at the moment you are looking towards playing Chi-Ji, just because we're steering a little bit clear of Clouded Focus, hopefully at least, which will make Ancient Teachings a lot better, and Courage of the White Tiger will make Tiger Palm very, very strong in that case. And getting the 5% shields on 5 allies through Strength of the Black Ox is going to be very, very good for that as well. It also gives you that reduced cast time on Enveloping Mist, which is also very good. So I think we're going to be looking towards playing Ancient Teachings, which is definitely welcome for a lot of people, because in my opinion, that's the most fun playstyle for Mistweaver. I'm not really a fan of sitting there channeling Soothing Mist anymore. I want to, get the Chi-Ji swiftness and run around and be mobile and kick and heal people.
Yeah, 100%. And so when you were talking before about Jade Bond and having a potential for a 3-minute Celestial, certainly you could be building it up. I mean, it'd be kind of tough with the way that Celestial Conduit is set up, because you could just align a 1.5-minute cooldown and then the minute cooldown to your Celestials and just kind of go to town. But what would they really require to make Jade Bond a viable option so that you can have your ramp, have your crazy burst of a Celestial at the 3-minute cooldown, and then in between you can have something smaller that's enhanced by Celestial Conduit? Do we need Dragonflight talents to be specifically edited, or could hero talents also build up some other playstyle that could synergize with a 3-minute Celestial?
I think if you had something that was sort of like a ramping buff during your Celestial, depending on how long the duration was, it would make Jade Bond a lot better. I think they could probably introduce that through something like giving you secondary stats, or just giving you a flat healing increase during the duration of it. It would also synergize pretty well if you ever have anything throughout the tree, if it does end up getting reworked to give you just a random proc of a Celestial. You can get a little bit of a buff from there. That is a pretty big ask, but that would be the direction that I'd want to go in with Jade Bond to sort of make it stronger, is to just give it more power, essentially.
Okay. And do you think that would also kind of push towards any other like Tier of Morning styles? Are you still liking this Tier of Morning style that we have going on right now, or do you want to just go full on towards Ancient Teachings?
I am a fan of having diversity in builds. However, I think that with sort of the introduction of Tier of Morning and Chi Harmony this tier, we have went back to the Stone Age of Mistweaver, where we're just sort of casting very simplistic rotations, not really using our brains very much, and just pummeling out HPS without really thinking about it. I'm not too much of a fan of that. I think that it could be a lot better than that. I do like that Tier Morning does give you some options, especially some thinking around the amount of Renewing Mist you have out and the decision to press either Enveloping Mist or Vivify. I think that's good. However, not a lot of people actually utilize that, and it's not really incentivized to use that either, just because the difference is so minor. If Chi Harmony ends up being a thing on Master of Harmony, we will still probably play around Tier of Morning on some fights, but I definitely think that Rising Mist and Ancient Teachings is going to surpass it, just because the sort of autonomy of the healing is a lot better than having to consciously and actively target people throughout a fight. If you could do meaningful numbers, just DPSing and doing healing at the same time, it's going to be a lot better than, you know, having to reactionarily heal someone with Soothing Mist and Vivify, right?
Right. Absolutely. So tell me, okay, what's the overall grade that you have for this hero talent tree? What would you rate it?
Out of 10, I would give it like a 9.5. I feel like this talent
Alright.
tree owns. This is definitely a step in the right direction. It gives you total diversity in a bunch of different playstyles. It introduces talents that we haven't really played around at all this expansion back into the kit with Refreshing Jadewind. It's super nice with the idea of Inner Compass, and giving us a 90-second cooldown that doesn't really feel that intrusive, or shouldn't feel that intrusive, is going to be pretty nice during that downtime where you don't really have anything else going on in the rotation. You can just sort of press it and get a lot of healing out.
That's great. Okay, so what do you think needs the most attention out of this? What sucks or needs assistance? What might be a problem?
On the final 3 talents before Unity Within, basically just Inner Compass and August Dynasty are significantly better than the 2 other options. The other 2 are basically utility and defensives, whereas Inner Compass will provide you a pretty substantial HPS buff, just because if you are able to chain around the secondary stats quite a bit, it'll give you quite a substantial buff to your HPS, which will be good. My other real concern is just basically what the temple training in terms of like if Vivify healing increase is going to be applied to Invigorating Mist, or if it's just to Vivify direct. Vivify has a lot of really weird modifiers on it, and in the past there have been stuff that has been like, okay, well here's Vivify buff by 40%. Well, it actually also buffs Invigorating Mist by 40%, but this 10% buff to Vivify doesn't buff Invigorating Mist. So if we get some confirmation on that, that'll bring it up to a 10. It's basically just wording that's holding it back from getting a perfect 10 in my eyes.
Awesome. Okay, and since this is near perfect 10, what could they do to really step up with Master of Harmony, the Brewmaster Mistweaver hybrid?
Oh, that's going to be hard. I think, just judging by the name, we are probably going to see Chi Harmony make a return.
Right.
It's kind of our beloved tier set. I think that there's a lot of problems if Tier of Harmony or Chi Harmony comes back, sort of, just because of Tier of Morning and spamming into the same target. I don't think that Master of Harmony is going to top Conduit Celestials. I was sort of hyped up for Conduit Celestials. I got a little bit of an insider info on what this would look like, and I was like, oh, that sounds so much better than Master of Harmony and Shadowpan can be. So I was super hyped about this one, and I saw that they delivered with it, so I'm very happy. I think Master of Harmony is going to be sort of the caster-focused rating build, or the M+ build, if you're going with Mistweaver, and Conduit Celestials is going to be sort of the higher APM, more involved version of Mistweaver that is, you know, spec towards people who are much more competitive on the spec.
Awesome. Well, hey, I mean, and that's an easy way to make sure they make everybody happy, right?
Yep. I think that giving diversity in the kit, like I said, is very, very good. So seeing multiple playstyles sort of be highlighted in these talents is very, very...
And so for you personally, would you just want to make sure that Chi Harmony, if it goes with Master of Harmony, right, would you still be pushed into that position where you'd play it, or would you be worried about the tuning of it? If you're expecting Conduit of the Celestials to be higher APM, more involved, and Master of Harmony to be more simple, would you feel bad if you were forced into Master of Harmony?
Definitely, yeah. I feel like people don't want to play the same playstyle that we've been playing right now. They want to go with something different, and Conduit Celestials gives you that option of playing something different than what we've been used to in 10.2 rating so far. But if the tuning pretty much remains the same on Master of Harmony and we go in with like a 50% increase to G Harmony like it is right now, odds are you are probably still going to stick with that playstyle, which will feel pretty bad and it will sort of deter people away from that. So I'd rather not see that happen. I want it to remain competitive in a sense, but keep it like 5-10% below the most optimal playstyle for Mistweaver, which would be in my eyes Rising Mist and Ancient Teachings.
Makes sense. All right, any other final thoughts you got for it?
Nope, not really. I was actually thinking that Shadowpan and Conduit Celestials would be the two for Mistweaver Monk. Seeing Master of Harmony was a little bit weird, but I guess we already knew that prior. So, but that was my initial thought, was that Shadowpan was going to end up being sort of the melee focused Ancient Teachings hybrid build, which I thought would be totally cool because speccing totally into that in raid feels very fun. Feels super fun to just blast DPS and get a lot of HPS out of that. So hopefully, Courage of the White Tiger pushes that farther ahead, so that way we can end up playing that in War Within.
Dude, I hope so too. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, later, dude.
Take care.
Hell yeah. I'm excited for this stuff. This is going to be great.